Well, good morning. I'm Stan Altman from the Mark School. I want to welcome you to our second workshop. This is the second workshop in the series of workshops we do during the Social Impact Challenge. The idea is to give you the kinds of skills that you're not only going to need to complete the competition, but also the kinds of skills you're going to need when you enter the world of work in this 21st century. So today's session is about problem solving. How do you approach a complex task by defining what exactly the problem is that you're trying to work on? I'm delighted that we have with us this morning Roger Osorio from IBM, who is both an executive trainer, a life coach, and somebody who has demonstrated a long interest in trying to empower young people like yourselves to be able to be kind of creative and very successful in this challenging world of the 21st century. So it's my pleasure to introduce Roger.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Stan. So let me just start off by telling you a little bit more about what I do and then what we're going to do today over the next couple of hours. So as Stan mentioned, my name is Roger Osorio. I work at IBM. I'm an executive coach there. I work with leaders around the world to help them go from goal to achievement. And so the process of coaching is essentially one where I help guide them, ask them the right questions, push them, hold them accountable for their growth, for the accomplishment of their goals. I'm not a mentor. I'm not there to give them answers. A mentor gives you answers. A mentor is someone who's already done what you want to do. And then you go to them and say, hey, look, I'm trying to start a career in music or whatever it might be, or I'm trying to start a career in medicine and I don't know which path to take. A mentor will answer that question. Whereas a coach will say, let's design the goal. What is the goal that you want to achieve? What's the result that you want to deliver? And then we work backwards to put together a plan. And of course, as we go along, we revise that plan because no plan stands the test of time. So as a coach, that's what I help IBMers do. I also instruct at University of Pennsylvania. I teach a class there in one of their executive master's programs, which is based on actually what we're doing today. I teach a very similar class. The only difference is I get 13 months to do it with them, so I have a little bit more time. Here we'll have 2 hours, but what I promise is what I selected for this particular session will definitely help you make progress in this competition. And really, I don't want this to be only about the competition or this event. I want this to be beyond that. I want you to be empowered with a process for learning how to take any idea from concept to creation. I've also spent time, I haven't done it a lot lately. I think my last event that I did was November, facilitating an event called Startup Weekend. Has anybody heard of Startup Weekend by chance? You've heard it? Have you participated? Okay, but you've heard of it. Cool. Here in the city? Yes. Okay, very cool. So Startup Weekend is essentially a 2.5-day program where, by the way, I'm trying to think if there is one. There might be one coming up in March or April in New York. I would totally recommend it, where you learn how to come in, pitch an idea in 60 seconds, form a team around that idea, and then spend the rest of the weekend learning how to take it from concept to creation. I'm going to give you a little preview of what we do at Startup Weekend, and I'm going to give you the steps that we do in Startup Weekend. We just don't have 2.5 days to do that part. But we'll have 2 hours, and I'll get in as much as possible, but also more importantly, I'll make sure that you understand why it works, how it works, so that you can do it on your own. Really, I want you to go out and do stuff on your own without me. I want you to be empowered to do that. So I've been facilitating this particular event for about, I think it's been 5 years now, roughly. I've facilitated about 46 events around the world. And it's really cool because one of the things I learned is that no matter where in the world we go, entrepreneurs or anybody who wants to even just start an idea, I mean, I really don't care what it is. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You could just say, look, I want to make my school better. I want to make my company better. I want to make my life better. Whatever it is, it all starts with an idea. And then you have to go from concept to creation. And so it's really cool to see how no matter where in the world you are, a lot of the struggles, a lot of the ideas are the same. People are encountering very similar issues. Ideas around music, ideas around parking, ideas around productivity, all of that stuff. People pitch the same ideas all over. And it's cool to see that because I get to travel to do this. They don't know that. They think that, oh no, no one gets my idea. I'm like, don't worry, the rest of the world totally gets your idea. They're all trying to solve it just like you are. But getting to help them go from concept to creation is a really cool process, because after 2.5 days, they present something. Now, all of you have a little more time than 2.5 days. Luckily, you have until, I believe it's about April. So you're going to have time to build this thing out and really dig in on the problem and understand all of these parts. And so again, my job here is to help you along that journey so that when you get there, you have a better developed idea, a better argument for why your case is true, why the problem that you want to solve is real and painful for someone, and why the solution that you're proposing, even if it can't be executed tomorrow, stands a chance of being able to really address that problem very specifically. And if you can get to that point and maybe even run an experiment or two, that right there would be the coolest thing, because let me tell you, it took me a while before I really even learned the process like this, and I wish I would have known it at your age. I came across this event when I was 32 or 3. So I haven't had, I wish I would have known this at 20. It would have changed my life, but that's cool. It'll change your lives. So we'll start there. So I lost my slides. I'm synced up here. I don't know if it went mute or something. Let's see here. Let's try that. Nothing. Let's try that and that. HDMI. I'm not sure why it went out on me. It went out a little earlier. I don't know if anybody... projector. Yeah, it went out for some reason. I'm not sure. Let's see if it comes back. No, it seems to be, oh, here we go. We're back. It came back on. Simple solution. Unplug and replug it in. Go figure. Okay, so what we're going to focus on, the first part of this is I want to go over that whole process. How do you actually take an idea? By the way, this applies not just to your projects for the Watson competition, but this is for your school projects. This is for anything you want to do while you're in school. This could be, look, I want to present myself in the best possible way to get a particular job when I'm done with school. You're taking an idea of what you want to achieve. You're taking an idea of what you're trying to become from concept to creation. This process is the same. So don't think of it only in terms of this competition. Think of it in how else can I apply this to my life. And so I'll cite as many examples as I can as we go along, so you can kind of see how this would work for a lot of different things. I use this for everything. One thing I didn't mention was that in my background, I used to teach. I was a middle school, at one point I was a high school math teacher and then a middle school math teacher. And in the classroom, every single day, I use this process. I was always taking my ideas, building them, measuring them, learning. Build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn, and going through a cycle of build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. I was trying to figure out, how do I make something better? And it's through build, measure, learn that you make things better. You build something out, you test it, you measure, you figure out, did that work, did that not work? And we do this in life all the time. Think about it. If you and I got into an argument and you were trying to smooth things over, you would try something out. You'd be like, oh, let me see, maybe I'll suggest that we go out and get coffee. And then you try that. You're like, that's your build. You give it a shot. I don't respond well. You measure that. You're like, yeah, that didn't work very well. So you're going to learn something from that. You're like, let me try something else. We do this in our relationships. We do this all the time. Build, measure, learn. The question is, can you be intentional about it? And you can. And if you start becoming more aware of it, you can do this all the time intentionally. You can say, I can get better at this. Has anyone here, have you heard of the idea of the growth mindset? Okay, one person, cool. So the growth mindset is an idea, by the way, that's always existed, but a professor at Stanford by the name of Carol Dweck did a lot of research to kind of put this idea together in a more organized way that we can use. And essentially, there's two kinds of mindsets, according to her research: the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. The growth mindset, well, let's start with the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset, I'm going to give you an example. I pick up a golf club for the very first time. Never played golf in my life. I grab it however I think one grabs a golf club. I swing, I hit the ground, rip up the dirt. I look at the ground. The ball's still there. Lots of dirt went flying though, all over the place. And then I say, wow, golf is definitely not my game, not my thing. So I'm just going to put this club down and never pick one up again. That's the fixed mindset. Have we ever done that in anything in life? Have we ever said like, oh, that's not my thing. Let me stay away from that. The growth mindset, same situation. Get my golf club, hit the dirt. Dirt goes flying all over the place. Patch of grass flying everywhere. Ball is still right there. I look at it, I go, I'm going to need some golf lessons. What's the difference? Yes, and then go ahead.
Desire to learn.
Pardon?
Desire to learn to get better.
Desire to learn to get better. What comes even before the desire to learn?
Noticing that something is wrong.
And what comes after the noticing? So we're going to break this process down. I like the way you're doing it. So I notice that something's wrong, that there's something to learn. I desire then to improve it. What comes in between? What has to happen for me to even get there?
Do you want to give up or do you want to
Do I want to give up? So, and yes, do I want to give up or go? And you were going to say?
you understand that you have the capability to get better?
And yes. So I have a decision, and then I understand, and I believe, more importantly than understand, that I can figure this out. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a professional golfer. Doesn't mean I'm going to win all the competitions or anything like that. But I can definitely learn how to swing a golf club if I choose to do it. Back to your decision point. And then the desire, let's go make this thing happen. Let's actually sign up for some lessons and make this thing happen. That's a growth mindset. We switch. We use both mindsets depending on the thing. Sometimes it's imposed on us by society, film, music, TV, whatever. Think about love. We hear about love at first sight. What kind of mindset is love at first sight? Fixed. Why is it fixed?
Because I honestly don't know how to think about it.
Give it a shot. Give it a shot. You're swinging your golf club. Go for it.
Let's say with a growth mindset, I guess the love can grow. You're expecting it to be like right off the bat. You're supposed to be good at kind of relating it to the golf one where you expect yourself to be good at it at first swing.
Absolutely. That's it. Love at first sight says that, look, either it's there or it's not. That's fixed. Either I swing and I hit the ball really well or I don't. Growth mindset says, okay, I didn't go so well, or, I didn't really see her or him that way right away, but, maybe over time I'll get to know somebody and it could change, who knows? Open mind, I don't know. I'll let it go. I'll see where it goes. That's the growth mindset. But, when we think about our movies and stuff we see, it's always like this whole love at first sight. Oh my God, it's there. I feel it. But let's face it, it's not always like that. So if you think about it, in some situations in life, you're growth, and some you're fixed, and that's okay. We're human, we do that. But if you're a little more aware, you can say, am I going at this in a fixed way? And if I am, can I see this differently? You don't have to, but at least if you're aware, you're making the decision versus it just happening to you. It's not cool when all of a sudden TV or movies influence us and then we just act without even thinking. Was it your choice? Are you really expressing your freedom? No. Somebody else influenced you. But if you stop to think and you still choose to go that way, that's cool. At least it was your decision. Growth, fixed mindset. This is important for an entrepreneur, for anybody trying to execute on an idea. Because what I can tell you right now is you will never, ever, 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 ever hit the ball on the first attempt at entrepreneurship or any endeavor where you want to take an idea from concept to creation. It just does not happen. If it does, here's what that means. The challenge was way too easy. You set it up so that you can easily succeed. And let me tell you, if you could set it up that easily to succeed, anyone can compete against you and set it up just as easily. We've done this in life too. Sometimes we take an easier course because we think, well, I'll definitely hit that ball. That ball's like this big. How do I miss it? Because the class is easier. And then sometimes we're like, you know what? I want a little challenge. I don't want to be a punk on this. I want to step up to this thing, and I'm going to actually go and I'm going to find the ball that's like this small. I'm going to try to swing that. And I'm going to try to do it with one leg up and one hand tied behind my back. And if you really like to punish yourself and really go through struggle because you like that blindfold, and you're trying to hit that thing and you're going to figure it out, right? I do that not in everything, by the way. Some things I do like it a little bit easier. I want the ball this big. But in others, I definitely want the ball that tiny. I want to be blindfolded. I want to have one hand tied behind my back. And I want to figure out how to do this thing. Makes it more exciting. That's what gets us all fired up. Nobody wakes up and gets fired up or excited about life when it's always ginormous balls that you're going to hit every single time and you're going to win every single day. That gets boring very quickly. Look at the top performing people in the world. You know, we celebrate players like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, all these guys, and we say, wow, they hit so many shots. But they missed so many more than they actually nailed. They got excited anyway. They were fired up to take those buzzer-beating shots. When there was 2 seconds left in the game, they wanted to take that shot. They had this weird, crazy desire deep down that they couldn't really tell everybody on their team. Because imagine telling your team, hey, I would love for us to not win by a lot. Can we keep it really close? It'd actually be really cool if we were down by 2 with 2 seconds left. Your team would freak out. They'd be like, whoa, whoa, dude, we're trying to win this thing. I know, but some little sick part inside of me wants us to be behind by 2 points because I want to take a three-pointer with 2 seconds left and try to hit that shot. Off one leg, falling backwards, you know, getting pushed, and still somehow get the shot in. We all have, or if we don't, we can find something in life. I'll tell you right now, you want to be fulfilled in anything, find that thing that you want to be the one taking the buzzer-beating shot in. You find that thing in life, whether it's a business idea, whether it's a profession, whether it's a career, whether it's a job, whatever it is, or like I said, a business, an idea, whatever it might be, that's the thing you wake up every day for. In fact, you're like, when can I wake up? Can I wake up earlier to do this? Like, I want to get to work. And you're going to do awesome work, by the way. You don't have to be great at it. You don't have to start off awesome, but you will get awesome. And you will kick whoever's butt is not that into it. Someone can start with an advantage, and there's really cool research that has shown there are some people that start off with a little advantage. Maybe they had a better math education, let's say, in math, for instance, better math education when they were younger. So it seems like it comes easier for them. They've practiced. They practiced more than you did, let's say, and all of that. But if they take that for granted and you hustle, you will pass them over time. And there's actual research to show there's certain points in school, like ages, usually high school and college, where you start to overtake those students. You can overtake anybody. Again, growth mindset. All of that starts with growth mindset. Same thing for the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are going up against, sometimes, really big companies. They're trying to launch a tiny little company that's supposed to go up against a really big company. These people got to get excited. They got to believe that they can one day overtake this big company. And sometimes, by the way, big companies get a little bit relaxed. They think, we're at the top already. We're good. We're safe. That little guy, no way. I'm going to talk to you about a theory called the theory of disruption, where companies have a strategy for actually being able to overtake the big guy. And by the way, you can use this in life as well. All right, so let's talk about ideas and let's start with the ideas part of this and how you go from concept to creation. So we all have ideas, but the key to any idea is execution, consistent execution. We could talk about ideas all day long. And we probably have in some cases. We've talked about this really cool thing I'm going to do one day. And then if I check in with you a year later, oh yeah, no, I'm still thinking about it. But yeah, totally. I'm going to apply for that job. I'm like, it's been 5 months, 6 months, a year. You haven't applied yet? Well, no, I'm getting ready. I'm going to really strong application, strong resume. But you haven't applied yet, right? No, I haven't applied yet. We talk about stuff. It happens. Execution. That's what separates the average from the good, or the good from the great, whatever it might be. So I want you to keep that in mind, execution. This process is about execution. This process is not about, oh, do I have the resources? Oh, do I have the money to do this? Oh, do I have the investors? Oh, do I have the degrees? It's not about that. These are clear steps. I don't care who you are. I don't care what resources you have or don't have. We can all execute. We just have to make the decision to do it. All of you in this competition have that opportunity within the context of an idea based on Watson, AI, finding a problem in our beloved city, and how can we make it better? Execution is what's going to get you from where we are today in this room to that final round, where you're going to be presenting, if you make it to the final round, in front of a much larger group and in front of a panel of judges for that final prize and award and recognition, and more importantly, the opportunity to keep on going. So to achieve consistent execution, we need a process. We need steps. Again, successful people don't magically become successful. What makes them successful? They have a recipe for success. They have a formula. They just follow it. That's it. They follow it. The difference between just following one or just taking one for the first time and maybe someone who's already achieved success, it's habitual. It's already part of what they do. But it has to get there through practice. So anybody can acquire those habits, learn those processes, and then just run them without thinking on anything. You've done that. In math classes, you've learned certain formulas, perhaps the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now I can throw at you a bunch of problems and you just run them, because once you kind of understand and know the formula, you just use the formula, right? Plug and chug. You plug in the numbers, you get something. Plug in, get something. Same exact thing. But you had to get to that point. You had to get to a point where you could just plug it in and go ahead and keep going. So ideas, another thing. Ideas aren't just for business. So I said this earlier. I just want to reiterate this. It could be for anything. It could be research, school, corporate projects, relationships, personal goals. This process applies to any of this. At the end of the day, it's all about build, measure, learn. So remember, build, measure, learn. If you remember nothing else that I say today, build, measure, learn. Stop and think build, measure, learn on anything you're doing. That already, by the way, bakes in the growth mindset. So if you don't want to remember growth mindset, just remember build, measure, learn. If you can do that on anything, that sucked. I hit the ground. I didn't hit a ball. That's my measurement. I learned something. Then I'll even go and probably get lessons. So at the root of every idea, so now we're going to get really into particular, like an idea. There's a few things that I have found through my work that is at the root of any idea. The first is a job to be done. When you are looking to, let's say, look, we're going to, for now, use the context of an idea, like a business idea or something you want to create for this competition. Someone out there that you're trying to serve with your idea is trying to get a job done. They're trying to do something. The person, the customer, the person who would be the customer of your idea is trying to get something done. What is the job that that person is attempting to get done? In the process of getting that job done, they run into problems. Of course, like anything else, we're going to run into obstacles. That part is where you come in. That's your opportunity. Their problem, their obstacle in getting their job done is your opportunity. Now, there's also an objective to achieve, because the person you're trying to serve is trying to get something done, and specifically something done. For instance, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to shift actually away from a business idea. I'm going to shift to all of you. All of you are in college right now. What is the job you're trying to get done? To graduate college or to get a job after college?
Job.
A job. If you weren't trying to get a job, would you be in college?
Probably not.
Maybe not. And maybe you had another job. Some people just wanted to come for fun. That's okay too. But probably not if you didn't want to get a job. So the job to be done is to get a job, to start your career. Perhaps you even have a very particular target. I want to work for IBM in their research facility or whatever it might be. Or I want to work at Facebook, or I want to work whatever company. You fill in the blank. That's the job to be done by you. Universities, colleges are there to help you get that job done. They set up a solution, a product, a service to help you get that job done. Now, they notice that in order for you to get your job done, there's certain obstacles, such as you need to be able to have some sort of foundational knowledge in the field that you're trying to go into. You might also need some practice. You might need some networking, some connections. You might need some introductions, all of that stuff, an opportunity to practice how to interview. There's a lot of obstacles in the way of you just getting that job. You don't just wake up at 18, finish high school, and boom, jobs land on you. You're working at IBM in their research facility. That doesn't just happen. The university comes in or the college comes in order to help you address some of those problems. And they know you have many objectives, because along the way you're going to have objectives. You're going to say, look, I'd really like to secure as many interviews as possible. I'd also like to be able to demonstrate what I learned. That would be a good objective to have if I'm trying to get a job with a company. I want to demonstrate I could do something. I'd also like to have some wins in my resume. You know, I don't want to just go in and say I haven't done anything. Like, I want to be able to show I've won a few things, smaller ones, but I've won something. Those are my objectives. And so the school, the university, or the college comes in to help you deliver those objectives, because that will help you get your job done. The school's job is not to get your job, it's not their job to get you a job. It's their job to prepare you so that you can do the final step, because they can't go into the interview room with you. They can't be a part of that conversation. But they can do everything possible to get as close as possible to that interview and then say, go do your thing. So the school is just there to help you get your job done. And the other thing at the root of any idea is usually a result. Yes, my job is to start the career. I want to start, that's a job to be done, is to prepare myself to start a career. But the result I want, how will I know that I won this thing? You as a student, if I'm a student as well, how do I know I won this thing? If I have a job at General Electric working for the marketing division or the finance division, I might have a really specific target. That's my big win. And the more specific you can be about what it is that the result is, the easier it is for you as the person trying to help someone do this. It's easier for you to really help them because you can connect with them. You can say, I know where you're really trying to go. I know the result you're trying to create. I'm not here to hand you that job or that result. I'm not going to get that part done for you. But I will be the best service, tool, product, whatever it might be, to get you there. You will take it, buy it, and it will help you get there. It will be an effective tool. It will specifically address your problems so that you can get the job done and hopefully achieve the result. Now let me ask you about, I want to ask a question here for the group. Results. Are results guaranteed or are they risky? Results. What's that?
Risky.
Louder.
Risky.
There you go. What do you think?
Results are guaranteed.
Results are guaranteed. Results are risky. One more person. Break the tie. Yes, sir. Guaranteed. Somebody else. Anybody else want to jump in?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Results. Guaranteed or risky? Somebody else. Risky. All right. We're tied now? No. 3-2. 3-2. All right. One more. Anybody else?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed. Another guarantee.
Risky.
Risky. Oh my gosh. This thing is just like, 3-2, 4-3. Ah. All right. Somebody else? Risky. Oh, we're tied. 4-4. Okay. Who wants to break that tie? Is there a tiebreaker here? One more person. Jump in. Results. Are they guaranteed or are they risky? Risky. All right. Risky wins. Okay. So risky is the winner, actually. Results are not guaranteed. The job is, I can do everything possible to prepare myself for the interview. I can do everything possible to get myself in there and even get some offers. The only thing that the job at GE or the job at Facebook or the job at IBM is not guaranteed because there's other competition too. There are other people doing the exact same thing. They're trying to get their jobs done so that they can secure the role that they want. And if they want the same role I want, there's going to be a little competition. But here's the good news. When you get to the point when the results that you want are not guaranteed, that's when life starts to get more exciting. Think about the most successful people in the world, whatever it is, in whatever field. Let's go back to basketball. When you think about those players, they're taking a shot with 2 or 3 seconds left in a game. They're down by 2. Is that guaranteed? They got themselves into position. They got the ball. Let's say they even get a shot off incredibly well with nobody in front of them. Once that ball leaves their hands, is that up to them? Is it guaranteed that that ball will go in? It's still a risk. But that's what makes it exciting. The possibility that you might not win. Yes?
Challenge that by saying a result, a result is a result whether it's positive or negative. That's why I said guaranteed, because you're gonna get a result whether it's your favorable result or not.
Ooh, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. A result will come no matter what. The question is, which way does it go? So what I was referring to clarify then, because that's an excellent point, is that the result you want. Is that guaranteed? And thank you, because next time I do this, I'm going to have to update that, because that was a very good distinction that I did not make. So if the result we want, is that guaranteed or not? That part is not, but you're right. A result happens one way or another. Question is, did we do our part to give it the best possibility of going our way or not? Entrepreneurs, they get into this business knowing that most of them will fail. They know most of them will not win this game. In fact, the chances of success are really, really just bad. They're so low. But that's what makes it exciting. That struggle, that fight. When results are guaranteed, the results you want, when the results you want are guaranteed, it's not that exciting. It doesn't move us. I'm not going to get that fired up for it. But when I don't know, when there's a little bit of suspense, you better believe that I'm going to get more fired up about this thing, especially if it's something I want to do. Same thing with these ideas. But we have to understand not just what we want to do, But what does our customer want to do? What's the result that our customer wants to achieve? If you know your customer that well, if you know the result they want to achieve, and you know the job that they need to do in order to achieve that result, and all the little objectives that roll up into that job, and you got to know them so well that you start to figure out some of their problems, maybe even before they figure out the problems, I don't care what your idea is, you will be able to add value in some way. And then the next challenge is, can you make that sellable? Can you turn that into a business? Can it be scalable? Meaning, can I get it to from 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people to 10,000 to 1,000,000? I don't know. But that's a different challenge. But first, we got to start here. We really, at the root of any idea, is understanding all of these things on behalf of our customer. So the first step to getting any idea from concept to creation is to identify the root of your idea. So you want to go back and really try to understand all of this from the perspective of your customer, the person that you want to help. Maybe, and I read some of the ideas. In some cases, it might be the city. But some of the ideas, like I read one about recycling, you're going to have to be very thoughtful here. Who is the customer in this case? Is it the city, and the city's job is to try to get to reduce waste? Is it the individual? Is it me? Are you trying to help me do something that would then help the city do their part? We have to be very specific about who we're addressing and then answer all of these questions for that audience. By the way, it doesn't mean that we ignore the other person. It just shows that, look, I'm going to focus on this particular customer. That's where I'm going to focus. But if I do a good job for them, let's face it, this other person is connected to this one. So I will somehow indirectly be helping the other person. So we have to figure that out. So I saw that one, and there was a lot of great research on that one, on the problem, and we'll talk about the specifics. We're going to go into the specific ideas. Was that you right there? There you go. So there was a lot of good data there. We just got to figure out who is your customer. And then, of course, we'll go through the others as well. So the first step, identify the root of your idea. Remember, all ideas are born out of necessity. These ideas don't just come to you because they're cool, and sometimes they do, but most ideas will come because of necessity. You ever have a moment where something just hits you, like a light bulb goes off in your head? Raise your hand if you've ever had a light bulb go off in your head, and you're like, oh my God, I just had an idea. All right, that didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere. The way that works in your brain is that you were paying attention to things, maybe over one day, maybe over a month, maybe over years in your life. And your brain was connecting little dots, forming dots first, then connecting them. And then one day, out of nowhere, it just seems like, poof, I just got this really cool idea. It didn't come out of nowhere. You were paying attention, even if it was in your periphery, you were noticing something happening. Often your ideas are somehow related, if you think about it carefully, to your upbringing, to your experience, to something you've been a part of. They don't really come out of nowhere. And then poof, you get them. It's usually necessity. You notice a problem, you notice a gap, you notice a struggle. And finally, your brain says, enough of this. I've got enough dots. I'm gonna connect this stuff and give this guy an idea. And then, oh, I got an idea. I know how we can solve this. And you start to have ideas. Born out of necessity. All ideas are born out of necessity. Think about that. What's the need for your idea? And yes, every now and then we'll just make up an idea because somebody told us, make up an idea. And you'll just make something up. That might not have necessity. But that's a different kind of exercise. Identify that necessity. So what is it? That's going to be the root. That's going to help you really understand the customer. Who is my customer? If I understand necessity, I will understand my customer. I will know who my customer is. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of theory here. So these are some really cool ideas. You've heard these words at times, perhaps, like if you've heard have you heard disruption? People using the term disruption. Raise your hand if you've heard disruption being used. All right, so a few hands are going up. So as you start to get more into the tech industry, if you do decide to go into that, you will hear the word disruption a lot. Most of the time it's used incredibly incorrectly. But I'm going to show you how to use it correctly. So you can be the person who doesn't do that, and maybe you teach a few other people how to do it right. So Clayton Christensen is a professor at Harvard. He's a consultant. He's done work for decades helping companies innovate and become innovators and continue to become innovators over decades. And one of the ideas that he presented in 1998 in a book called The Innovator's Dilemma was this idea of the theory of jobs to be done. And the theory of jobs to be done, which we already talked about, I just didn't tell you it was a theory, but the theory of jobs to be done is that your customer is attempting to do something when they run into a problem and they decide to hire a product to help them get the job done. That's the decision-making process. If you look at it that way, your market is not really only measurable by age, because I may be a certain age, and you may think, oh, Roger's too old for my product. But there might be a moment in my day where I'm trying to do something that your product could help me do. And if you understood the jobs to be done of all your customers, you would be able to say, sometimes even a guy as old as Roger is my customer. But how do I find him at the right time in the right place when he's encountering that challenge? That way he sees my product, bam, and he buys it. That's the challenge of marketing. Marketing tries to put your product in all the right places at the right time. So Clayton Christensen was talking about how, and I really like this quote because I'll explain it in a second. He presents in this book, Competing Against Luck, if you want to learn more about the theory of jobs to be done, which what I can tell you right now is this is the kind of book that will separate you from so many people. I work at IBM, a company of 400,000 people, a very successful company. And let me tell you, I teach this at IBM. People are not reading this stuff. It's a shame, because then they're still looking at markets sometimes by age groups, by whatever it might be. And that's okay. Companies do that. It is what it is. But this book, if you're looking for one book that could set you apart, this is one of those books. I could recommend a few more too, by the way, but that's one of the ones I would recommend that will set you apart. And it's a great read. Clayton Christensen writes it. He published his book like 2-3 years ago, and he's been doing this work for decades. One thing you'll notice about authors who've been doing their work for decades, like really in the work, is that they write way better when they're older. You know, you ever hear like somebody who's been doing something for a long time just talking, and you're like, wow, how do you say all this stuff from all these years, all this experience, and you say it in so few words? Like one line, you blow my mind like with one sentence. That only comes with time, with experience, with age. Clayton Christensen in this book gets to that point. When he wrote one of his first books, the earlier books, when I was reading that, it's a little bit of a tougher read. I was like, oh man, this guy's going on and on and on about stuff. But that's okay. He got older like we all do. And he wrote a much better book. This is it, and I really like this one a lot. He said, he uses this quote that one of his professors used in class once. People don't wake up and want a 5mm drill or a 5-inch drill or whatever it might be. They want a 5mm hole. And so what that means is that nobody wakes up and says, I want to buy a drill. No, they wake up and say, I need to make a hole in this wall. How do I go ahead and how do I make a hole in this wall? What tool can I hire to help me put a hole in this wall? And that's where the drill comes in. So if you think about your customer that way, what's the thing? What's the necessity? What's the need that creates the desire for your product? What's the thing they're trying to do? What's a job they're trying to do that creates the desire or the need for your product? If you're designing a solution for recycling or whatever it might be, or whatever problem in the city might be, or school stuff like capturing notes, what causes that? Because nobody wakes up and says, I want your tool, or I want your app, or I want your solution. Nobody wakes up thinking that. But they do wake up thinking, I have a need. We've seen this with apps. Some of us have like hundreds of apps on our phone. How many do you really use on a regular basis? Probably like one, depending on how many you have, it's a small percentage. It just depends on the number. Even if you don't have a lot of apps, it's still a small number that you actually use. Here's why. Because only a few of those apps actually help you do something that means something to you in your life. If it doesn't, it was nice to have for a day, it was entertaining, and it just sits there. But if it helps you do something in your life, by the way, sometimes wasting time is the thing we want to do, and that's okay, but whatever it is, it will stay on our phone and we will use it. So that's the thing. There are a lot of drills in the world, but not always a hole that's attached to it. And so that's what I want you to think about. When you're coming up with your idea, I want you to not just think about your idea, I want you to actually think about the whole first. Because if you obsess over the problem, if you obsess over the job to be done, if you obsess over your customer, trust me, you will find good ideas to help them. Your idea will change, will evolve. One thing that doesn't change is the problem. The problem stays the same. It's fixed. In the math world, it's your fixed, it's your constant. The variables are your ideas. Those change all the time. They're going to get better. Every month, every 2 months, they're going to get a little bit better. So if that's the case, If your idea is going to evolve anyway and change, why fall in love with an idea that's not even going to look the same in a year? Why not fall in love with the problem that's going to be the same for a very long time? And your job is to figure out how to solve it. You want to become one of those visionary entrepreneurs and leaders, the game changers in the world? Then don't just set out to help reduce the problem, set out to eradicate and eliminate the problem altogether. Those are the people that we celebrate, by the way. Those are the ones that get remembered for centuries. They were trying to do something that bold. They weren't just saying, look, I'm going to help reduce this thing, or I'm going to help improve graduation rates by some percent. The person who's going to rock our world in education is going to be the one who says, I'm looking to make sure that no one ever doesn't graduate, or no one doesn't ever get the job that they want. Something crazy. That's like bold thinking. That's crazy, next level, they're going to chase that for the rest of their lives. And they most likely won't make it, but they're going to love their lives for it. They're going to say, I had a blast chasing that thing. I didn't get there, but I got pretty damn close. And I'm glad that I went through that struggle to get there, as far as I got. And hopefully one day somebody younger says, I want to finish the work that person started. And they pick up where you left off, and then they were inspired by your work, and they keep going. And they go farther than you were able to go. So think about that. That's what happens when you obsess over the problem, the need, the job to be done. That's the extreme version. Not everyone has to pursue that. I'm just letting you know that in case that's the kind of thing that could fire you up in life, in case you've ever encountered something that bothers you that much in life, there is a way to do that. And you can make it your life's work. So Clayton Christensen talks about this. According to him, this is the issue. You have to look at the whole. The second step, once you've identified the problem, the job to be done, the objective, then you got to validate the root cause. You have to start getting some evidence. What I found, is it true? You got to run some tests. You can interview people. You can go observe the problem, like sit somewhere and just watch the problem happening. I'm trying to see if anybody has a cup of coffee with a sleeve. Ah, yes, always one around. There we go. So let's imagine how someone could have come up with this sleeve. Because there was a time where it was just a cup. This wasn't always around. I don't know, you guys are younger, so maybe this was always around for you. But there was a time where this thing wasn't around. And so you might have used a napkin or something like that. But imagine the person who sat there and came up with this. I don't know exactly how they came up with this, but I'm going to imagine a scenario that could have been possible. Maybe the person was sitting at a coffee shop enjoying their coffee in a proper coffee cup because they were staying there. And they noticed that they kept putting these cups of coffee on the counter to go, and people would grab them. And maybe they would do it without the lid on. And it was filled to the top. And somebody would touch it, burn their hand, coffee spills, more burn, damn it. And then they would go and have to find napkins. Then they would get napkins, dry up all this stuff, maybe even take a couple extra napkins, wrap them around the cup, and walk away with their cup and proceed with their day. Imagine seeing that happen 100 times in an hour. Imagine seeing that happen 1 hour a day. Imagine seeing that happen over the course of 30 days. You're thinking, there's a problem here. This needs to be solved. There is a need here. And observing that, that's proof, that's evidence. I can count that. I can go to anybody, maybe a fellow co-founder or somebody that I'm trying to recruit to my team, and I could say, look, I'm going to prove to you this is real. Come sit down at a coffee shop with me. Count how many times this happens in 1 hour. And the person's like, wow, I just counted 125. I'm telling you, this thing is a real problem. That's evidence. And it's scientific. It's firsthand. You did the research. You observed it happening. No one can take that away from you. No one can say, I don't know, I don't believe you. Then record it and watch the video. Look, just set up my camera right there, boom, and just let's get an hour of footage 125 times. We'll do this any day you want, anytime you want. We're going to see this thing happen. So that is how you prove that something actually is a problem. And then you can start playing around with your solutions, which is what comes a little bit later. So observe the job to be done in the problem. That's one of the best ways to do it, if you ask me. Interviewing people about it is another way. Talking to people. Not leading them and telling them, hey, can you tell me the last time you burned your hand on a cup of coffee? Well, yeah, was that cool or did that suck? Oh, that really sucked. Okay, cool. I have a good idea then. of course everyone's going to tell me that that's not cool. If I asked you, tell me about the last time you burned your hand on a cup of coffee, you're going to be like, oh, that was terrible. But if I ask you, tell me about the last time you went to a coffee shop. Oh, this morning. Oh, can you walk me through the experience? Like from the point where you literally open the doors and walk in. Yeah, so I walked in and I stood in line. Oh, it was a crazy long line, so annoying. I ended up then, while I was in line, ordering it on the Starbucks app. And then I just stepped offline, wait for my drink. Actually came a lot faster. They're telling you all this stuff. You're like, that's cool, that's cool. But you're sounding interested because you don't want to lead them into your thing. You're hoping that at some point they just say, yeah, and then I went over and I grabbed my cup of coffee and actually I ended up spilling some of it. Oh, like what happened? What do you mean you spilled some of it? Yeah, like it was really hot. And then I ended up like knocking it over a bit, got it on my hand, burned my hand, had to get a bunch of paper towels and all this. Oh, how did you like carry the cup later? And then, they're starting to tell you a little bit more about what they did. Interesting. They keep telling me about, then I walked out of the coffee shop and, then I tripped on the sidewalk. That sucked. I lost all my coffee and it was a bummer. Okay, you're like, okay, cool. Thanks for that. You're hearing that whole story because you want to, one, validate whether what you're thinking is a problem, hypothesizing is a problem, is really real or not, without you having to tell them that it's a problem. Because if I tell you it's a problem, you're probably going to agree, just to be nice. Anybody will do that. That's the easy way out. We do this a lot with stuff. You ever ask somebody a question and then offer like 3 answers? You're like, oh, why didn't you take my call? Were you busy? Like, were you on the other line with somebody? Yes, one of those 2. Sure, I was busy. But we do that. So imagine if you're trying to interview people, don't do that. And in life, don't do this. I was just on the phone with somebody the other day, coaching them on business stuff, and this came up, this idea of like asking questions and then offering answers. So we rehearsed a conversation with their manager because they were about to when they rehearsed with me the first time, they asked a tough question and then they offered like 3 answers. And I'm like, no, when you're done asking the question, shut up. Don't say anything more. Don't give the other person the answers. Let them say what they got to say. You want to know the truth, right? So it's same thing with customers. I want to know the truth. So I don't want to ask you about the time you burned your hand over a cup of coffee. I want to know about the last time you were at a coffee shop. So you observe, you interview, you prove it. It's real. You validated this thing. So the third step is really now it's to start designing solutions. Okay, how do I make sure that this thing doesn't burn someone's hand? Well, what do people currently do right now? Well, they usually take like a napkin and they, wrap it around. Maybe the first iteration of this idea was, what if we had like a little clip that holds, like a cheap clip that would hold the 2 ends of your napkin together around it? Or what if we just put a roll of Scotch tape near the counter so they can just tape their napkin around the cup? Well, that could be a cool solution, right? The napkin would not go all the way around, so the tape would stick to the cup, which means it would hold the napkin on the cup. That's not a bad solution. But then they're thinking, is this solution scalable? Like, is this easy for the customer to use? Because I know from my interviews, they always seem in a rush. That's why they even hit the cup, because they're so rushed. Oh my God, I gotta get out of here and go to work. That's why they spill it. So is there another way to do this? Because I'm not sure they're gonna stop to say, hold on, let me get my napkin. All right, line it up. Take a little piece of tape. Missed. Another one, oh, that wasn't long enough. Oh crap, that was too long. It's on my hand now. My hand is taped to the cup. It's not working. But then you start to think a little bit more and you start to wonder, is there something that could slip right onto the cup? Something that I could put. Maybe the napkin could already be preset that way. Is a napkin the right way to do it? I don't know. Maybe there's something better because it even goes through napkins. And in my interviews, people said that the napkin's not even good enough. Sometimes they have to use 2 or 3 napkins, especially if it's cheap napkins. Notice how I'm drawing back to interviews. I'm going back to my interviews to figure this out. Well, this is where us as the founders start to think, what else could we do? Well, maybe there's a material that's a little bit better than maybe a cardboard or a plastic or something like that. Yeah, well, plastic would be tough because plastic would, might like take up a lot of space. But if it was paper, we know it'd be like different. It'd be flat. I can fold it around or something. So is there something along those lines? And you start to think more about cardboard. And you start to think, like, does it work with cardboard? So then you get a little piece of cardboard and you put it around the cup and you realize it's still hot. Then you start to think, how do I separate? Notice how I'm going through iterations. How do I separate the cardboard from the cup just a little bit? And notice these little ridges. I put a little distance between the cup and the sleeve. Now, at least it's not direct heat touching the cardboard so it won't burn my hands. And it should stay cooler longer. Let's test that out. Let's get a piece of cardboard. Let's put something in between and let's see what happens. Wow, that really works. Like and then I go to Starbucks. Can you make this super hot for me? Like super hot. Like I want to like burn my whole insides and everything. Yes, I can do that for you. Awesome. And then you put your prototype around it and you start to figure out that actually kind of works. Let's make a few more. And you can see where this starts to go. Then you have to go and test it, which is what we just did. So you're testing it, it works. You might put it in other people's hands. Hey, I'm back at the coffee shop where I did my research, and I have like 10 of these. And I'm gonna pick 10 lucky people to get my little prototype that I made at home, and I'm gonna say, here, I got something for you. I saw you burn your hand the other day, so see if this works. Oh, wow, this is really cool. This not hot. Awesome, thanks. I'll see you tomorrow. Let me know how it goes. Sure. That's how we interview and we find out if our products are any good or not before we go and start making like 1 million of these and try to find investors and build apps and all the stuff that we try to do that we get more excited about. That's how simple a business idea can begin. So your idea is a vehicle to helping someone achieve their result. And if you want to really go deep in this, as I've suggested, we try to understand what's the person trying to do when they get their cup of coffee in the morning. They're in a rush. They're trying to get it in. They were trying to get in and out the door quickly. So if I can help them get out more quickly, I will design a solution that's quick, not slow. That informed me. This is not a mistake that I have to make. I got my interviews. I learned something already. I can fix this. And the fourth step is designing a model for launching. This is where the business part really starts. This is where you can start to conceive, okay, guys, look, we figured this thing out. We've been testing this for like about 5 weeks. We've given out about 100 of these. Like 90 people have gotten back to us because it's a coffee shop. They come back to the same one at the same time. We've re-interviewed 90 of them. They all loved it. They said it worked. It stayed the whole time that they were drinking. And some of them even told us that they took it off and left it on their desk just in case they needed it for another cup. That's how much they liked it. We've got some info now, or we've got some evidence. Let's start figuring out how can we go and make more of these? Because 100 is not enough. We're gonna need like 1,000, and maybe we could talk to our local coffee shop and see if they'll experiment with us, and maybe just buy them. We might even just sell it to them at the cost, because I'm just trying to prove that this thing could work. And so I talk to the manager of the coffee shop or the owner. I go to Irving Farms, coffee shop, whatever. And I talk to them and I say, hey guys, I want to run this experiment. I've been here, you know me. I'm here at your coffee shop all the time. And I see people burning their hands. I made this prototype. Yeah, I've seen you talking to some of our customers and I kind of saw that thing that you were putting on the cups. What is that? It's this thing right here. I just ordered 1,000 of them. And I want to test it here. But I need a little help to pay for the 1,000. This is the cost. Would you agree to at least just pay the cost and help me get this thing paid? And let's get them in your store and let's just see what happens. And I'll do the work to get the research. Sounds like a pretty safe deal. How much are they? They're like a fraction of a penny each or a penny each or whatever it might be. I can swing that. Boom, let's get that first order in. All of a sudden, in a way, you have your first investor. And now they're going to help you take this further. So you start to design a model. As you start to decide to expand into other coffee shops, then you have to start thinking about other things. You start thinking about your target customers, your costs, your pricing, the value proposition. How will you launch this? How will you market this? Because you got to let the world know. Your local coffee shop knows because they're your local coffee shop. You talk to them. But can you talk to every coffee shop owner in the country? Probably not one-on-one. So you need help. You need to come up with a marketing strategy for getting that. That's when the business part starts. Sometimes people get excited and start with this on their ideas. They start thinking about investors. They start thinking about factories. They start thinking about app development. I'm like, if you can't even put a prototype together and get a little evidence from me, what are we doing here? Like, why spend money on this other stuff? That becomes too risky then. If this is not grounded in the first 3 steps, if you don't have the first 3 steps done, this is super risky. That risk is not necessary. You're already taking a risk on the result you want. I want to be a millionaire with this idea. That's not a guarantee, because some other competitors might come in. It might become a marketing battle. It might not be about the solution. You might do everything you can and still lose that. But let me tell you, this part does not have to be risky. You can start this business if you spend the time on those first 3 parts. So, and I talked about testing it. So, like I said, don't worry about your idea being pretty, your prototype being a pretty prototype. Just something, whatever it might be. I'm going to give you another example. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Uber. Uber, awesome. In New York, I get this. When I go to smaller markets, like I say Uber, and it's like 2 hands go up, because they might not even have it in their city. So, we're all familiar with how Uber works. By the way, does anybody know what the first Uber product was? You know how there's like Uber everything? Uber X, Uber Food, Uber Eats, Uber whatever. Uber Black, Uber SUV, Uber, the list goes on in New York. What was the first Uber product? Take a guess.
Just taxi service?
Taxi service? The Uber taxi?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Somebody else.
That's my guess. Works.
Uber X? All right, Uber taxi, Uber X, somebody else. What is it?
Uber pool?
Uber pool, Uber pool. Somebody else? Anyone else? Just take a gamble. Yeah, I used to be a math teacher, so I call on people, by the way. So you looked at me. See, that's the problem. You can't make eye contact with me. Everybody should be like this. Like I don't want to look at him because he's going to call me.
Uber Black.
Uber Black. Okay. Well, aren't you glad I called on you? Uber Black was the first one. That was the first one to come out. When they got started, I'm going to tell 2 stories here. One is about this, so you know why they got started with Uber Black, and it connects to why, like their launch strategy. Then I'm going to tell you about how they prototyped that idea, how you can prototype an Uber idea without an app. Most people think you have to prototype Uber with an app. You don't have to. But how they got to Uber Black first. When they were looking to get into this market, people were not thinking, sure, I'll drive a stranger from point A to point B in my own car. Hello, my generation grew up with stranger danger. Pretty much, if you get into a stranger's car, you will die. That's it. That's what I was taught. So you're going to die. So when I first did Uber X, I have to admit, I was like scared to death. I'm like, I'm going to be on guard. I'm going to sit in the back corner and be like, what's going on here? I had no idea what to expect. I'm like, this person can kill me. Like, that's how I was raised. So they knew it's not a good way to start, by the way. They did have that vision, by the way, but that wasn't how they started. They thought to themselves, how do we launch this in a simpler way with less work? Because we want to make money and we want to prove that this thing could work. And really, we're trying to show that people can order their own cars. But do I have to get the added challenge of making sure that strangers or people will drive their own cars and drive strangers? That's risky. Are there people currently on the street in cars that already drive professionally, meaning they're already okay with driving strangers in exchange for money? Are there people who already do that, but that maybe have a lot of free time on their hands and maybe would play around with us? So it turned out that black car drivers who were professionals already, licensed, all that good stuff, they didn't have to worry about any of that. When they interviewed them, they said, their normal day, so tell me about your day. Oh, well, I've got usually on any given day, maybe 4 or 5 executive clients that I'm booked for. Oh, tell us about your day. Well, I'll go pick up the first one. Maybe sometimes it's just 1 in the morning, and I'll pick him or her up, drop, that person off at their destination. It's usually like they've got a meeting they got to go to, and they need me to also come get them at the end of the meeting. Okay, so what happens then? So they get out of the car. What do you do at that point? I usually go find a place to park, and just kind of sit by. I might read a book, or maybe it's a good time for me to eat breakfast or something like that. And then I wait. When it's like an hour or whenever they tell me, I swing right back around and wait for them to come down, and I pick them up. And then, I do all that. They heard that enough times, and then they asked a question, with that extra time, have you ever considered booking another executive client? Yeah, I have, but, it's usually the ride is too long. It requires another wait, which makes it really hard to stagger too many. I can't get them all too close to each other because then I risk not delivering for one of them. And they pay me a lot of money to guaranteed be there. So I really can't lose that business. Fair enough. So scheduling becomes a bit of an issue. Yeah, scheduling becomes a bit of an issue. But it would be cool if I could, fill in that time with rides. What kind of rides? Well, I guess short ones that aren't too far. And then it's like, okay. And how much would you charge for that? I guess my rate. Would you take less? I guess. I only make $0 in between. So I suppose a little money is better than no money. So through this conversation, they said, well, what if we offered you a solution where you could, do this stuff, where we could address this? And they engaged with that. They thought, wow, this would help us in the exact way we need help in that gap of time. So how do I know this? I actually interviewed the black car drivers when Uber first came out in Philadelphia. So they had set up they didn't even have an office in Philadelphia. They were using a co-working space. And I met the guy through a connection. I just asked a bunch of questions about the idea. And then he said, here's a few cards for codes for free rides while you're in Philly. So I used them. And then I used that time in the car to interview the drivers. And it was because I was helping another friend with a startup that required something similar. And I wanted to understand how that market worked. And this is what the drivers told me. They go this Uber's an awesome solution for us because they finally fill in the gap between those rides when I just need a short ride, like a 15-minute ride or a 20-minute ride. I can't commit to an hour or longer, but I can commit to a short one-way ride. But normally, I'm not getting those requests in the exact length that I need them. But with Uber, it's usually just in town or in this area. So for the most part, yeah, it helps me out. So so when he was driving me, he was in between a longer session, and he was able to use that. I thought, wow, this is really cool. So Uber chose to start in this market because that was a ready market. They were there, low-hanging fruit. They didn't have to convince them that much. They had to just understand their problem and the job that they were trying to get done. They're trying to make money. These are business people. They are trying to make money. They're not just driving executives for the good of driving executives. They're driving executives because they want to make money. And if I can help them make more money so they could achieve their financial results and goals, then they might be interested. Let's see. And so that's how it started. By the way, obviously the way you see it now, Uber Black has become such a lucrative business that it is the only business. For some of them, that's all they do. But some still have their executive clients. I just took a ride the other day in an Uber Black because there were no Uber X's around the airport, and I was forced to take one. And I started interviewing the guy because I was curious to see how does this work for you guys? And I told him about my story from so many years ago. I think that was 2009 or something that I interviewed that person in Philly, or a few drivers in Philly. And he said, no, in my case, I still have my executive clients, but it's a good mix. This late night hour, because he was picking me up at 1 a.m. from the airport. He goes, at this late hour, I don't really have a lot of their work, but the Uber Black rates are pretty nice now. Back then they weren't, by the way. Back then they were the same rates as Uber X. So that's how they started. So imagine being able to get a really nice Cadillac for the same Uber X price. You'd be doing that all day, right? But they couldn't do that forever. It was part of the test. That's how they launched their idea. Now, that's why it started with Uber Black, and then it expanded into other things. Uber, the app, there was a simple way to prototype it. Now, I read in a book that they prototyped it kind of like this, but I've been trying to find more evidence. But even if they didn't do it this way, you could have tested the model. So here's how it goes. What I could do is if I want to test my idea, whether building an Uber app makes sense and getting investor money, developers, and all that kind of stuff, I could just say this. I am going to hire a driver for the week. I am going to, or even for the day, if I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to rent a car, a nice one. Might as well rent something nice from Hertz or Enterprise or wherever for the day. Let's say the week, actually. Then I am going to create a Google form that says, put your name in, your pickup address, your drop-off address, your phone number, and whatever else I think is important, and maybe your credit card information to charge you, blah, that's it. And then I'm going to send the link to all of my friends in New York and say, if you need a ride in Manhattan between this street and this street, 14th and 59th, call me up or use this form and make the request, and I will send you a driver. My friends are like, huh, that's interesting. Sure, what the hell? I'll play around with this. I'll help them out. We'll test this out. Let's see what happens. And then somebody calls and makes the first request. I'm just sitting behind my laptop. Please, somebody make this request. I really want to test this thing out, and I want to see if people do it. I don't want to make them do it. I just want to see if they do it on their own. All of a sudden, a request comes in. All right, I'm going to pick up my buddy Rich. at this corner, 59th and Lex or whatever, let's say. And we got to get Rich down to here, 22nd and Lex. So that's the mission. All right, so I text my driver, hey, Peter, I need you to go to 59th and Lex and pick up Rich and then bring Rich down to 22nd and Lex. All right, seems pretty straightforward. Peter goes over, pulls over somewhere in front. Rich comes down. Rich is looking around, whatever, finds a driver. They do the whole ride and all that. Boom, everything looks good. I interview Rich later. Rich, tell me about the experience. How did everything go from the point you submitted the request? Well, I submitted the request and you replied back pretty quickly. You told me the driver to be there in 10 minutes. Not bad, because I probably would have, spent that time looking, the same amount of time getting downstairs, all that, trying to hail a cab, all of this. Probably would have been 10 minutes anyway from where I was to getting all the way downstairs and doing that. So that was cool, when you responded and all that. Then I came out and I was looking for, the driver. And I realized I didn't know what car I was looking for. Okay, and so I just started looking around and all that. And I was trying to figure it out. I saw one car with a guy just sitting in there looking pretty creepy. So I kind of just assumed that must be him because nobody else was sitting in a car. So I just assumed that was the one coming to pick me up. So I knocked on the window and then I said, hey, are you here to pick up Rich? And the guy said, oh, yeah, totally. I'm your driver. I'm Peter, and I'm going to take you down to 22nd and Lex. Oh, cool, and all that. What am I thinking as the founder of this idea and the experimenter?
You need a marker for the cars?
Pardon?
You need markers for the cars.
I need a way. Yep, I might need a marker. What else might I be thinking? I want to hear a lot of ideas here. I just presented you with a situation, a real situation. What would happen? What would you come up with? Somebody else, go for it.
A way that you yourself don't have to text the driver every time.
A way that I don't have to text a driver every time. What else?
How do you alert the customer that the driver's outside?
How do I alert the customer that the driver's outside? What else?
If I can't find the driver, maybe I can call him.
If I can't find the driver, maybe I can call him. What else am I thinking? Think about it. Yes?
Does the driver know who the customer is?
Pardon?
Does the driver know who the customer is, what the customer looks like?
Yeah, what does the customer look like? If the driver knew that, cool. What else? He just took yours. Ah, look at that. No way. You're still thinking. Raise your hand when you're ready. What might you be thinking?
I don't really calling the driver, so if I had a way to find the driver or something.
Yeah, so you want to find, you'd like to see where the driver is because you'd rather not call. I like that. Very cool. Yes?
Do you like a phone number system so they're not actually calling your real number?
There we go. So we want to mask our phone numbers so that nobody knows our actual phone numbers because stranger danger. I don't want people tracing my number and finding out where I live and then my Uber driver coming to kill me anyway, So, because that's what I'm thinking, by the way. All right. All of these things came from that experiment. So guess what happens? All of a sudden, you start adding a call feature. You start adding car type, car color, driver's face, passenger's face. You start to build out, what you're doing is you're making a list of needs and benefits and features for the app that you will eventually build. Imagine having built that app, spent all this money, and missing all of those features. That would have been a waste. But if you could have that first and then put out your list and say, now I'm ready to hire a developer, I know exactly what I need, or at least almost exactly what I need, because you'll learn more, obviously, as you launch. Now I'm much closer to a product that's going to connect with my market. But the only way to do that is to test it. How much did the rental car cost me? Maybe $300 for the week. The driver, maybe I paid the driver $100 a day. So, 500, 300, 800 we're looking at. And let's just round it out to 1,000. In a week, I tested something for $1,000. That's a lot of money, yes. But if I couldn't afford that, I could just do a day rental, and then just one person. And maybe I drive the car myself or one of my buddies drives the car and I don't, pay that person. So we could find other ways to do it. My point is that's how you test an idea without having to build the whole thing out. Don't build the whole idea out. Conceive how you might be able to experiment with your idea. And there's so many ways to be able to do that. All right. So that's where you begin testing it. And like I said, it could be ugly, it could be cheap, it could be small. Just do it anyway. Don't be afraid because ultimately you need to test, fail, and try again anyway. All right. So This is the concept to creation. We talked a little bit about problem, but now we're going to actually get into the activity where we're going to start building out and researching our problem. We're going to talk more about the recycling thing, the note-taking thing, and all of those ideas that I've already read a little bit about. So let me switch decks real quick. So are you all like in teams already or anything? Are some of you already sitting together with your teams? All right, so I want to get you guys a little bit closer and grouped off because you're all the way over there and the camera's over here and wants to see the action. So can I have, how many, where's your team?
Here, back there.
All right, so let's get you here. All right. Up here. And where's another team? The three of you? No, not you? The two of you? Oh, and the person there. Okay, cool. So maybe come up here. I just want you a little closer and all of that because I'm going to be able to help you out and all. And then another team. Is there a team back there? The two of you, come a little closer, maybe to those two seats, or here, these two seats right over here. Careful with the camera. Anybody back there? Teams? Raise your hand if you're on your own, if you're a one-man team for now. All right, cool. So let's get you all in this section over here. So shift over and get into these two tables over here. You might become a team, who knows? So this is a good way to start meeting others who are looking for teams. And anyone else, come up. And you, one person? Not team? Come up anyway. If you got a team, come up here, get a little closer to us. All right, cool. So let's switch this up. All right, so all you're going to need here is basically paper and pencil, or pen. That's pretty much it. We're just going to like start thinking about some of this stuff. We're going to answer some questions. You're going to do this in your groups. For those of you who are just one person, feel free to just talk to the person next to you. But do think about it first, and then, if they're thinking, don't interrupt their thinking. But then when you see that they're not thinking, work with each other. And also, we're going to share this out, so I'm going to be able to give you feedback on some of this. So I talked about this already, so I'm just going to very quickly show you that slide. At the root of every business, of every great business is a clearly defined job to be done, problem to solve, objective to achieve, and result to attain. We must understand that all ideas are born out of necessity. We talked about this. Identify the necessity, and then you will get to the root of your idea. We talked about Clayton Christensen, so I'm not going to go over that again. But I did promise you I was going to tell you a little bit about disruption and how disruption works, the disruptive strategy, so you can understand how people innovate using the theory of disruption. So when you are so let's think of an example. I'm trying to think of a good example of a disruptive company. So Airbnb, raise your hand. Familiar with Airbnb? All right, cool. Airbnb offers us or connects us to people who are willing to rent us their spare bedroom or their entire apartment. We use this instead of a hotel. Airbnb applied a disruptive strategy to getting into the market of offering us space. Who were the big competitors or who were the big players in that world prior to Airbnb? Marriott. Major hotels, the Hilton, the Marriott, like those two cover a lot, and any other hotels. These were the competitors. If you were traveling from one city to another, you would most likely get a hotel. What was another option that you might have engaged in? Family or friends. You might have stayed on a couch, right? Oh, stay with me. You can lay on my couch and sleep there. Cool. So we did that. Especially if we were younger and we didn't have back problems and all that, we could sleep on a couch. So we do that kind of stuff. All right. Airbnb comes in and they're thinking, they were thinking a lot of things. It's actually a pretty cool story, how they went from the idea all the way to building the whole thing out. But Airbnb had a lot of things they were thinking. There was a problem in that there was a conference being held, I think it was in their city. And when that conference they wanted to attend this conference, or somebody in that apartment wanted to attend the conference. But the tickets were expensive, all of this. It was going to be tough. Rent was tough for them as a team, as a group of people. They were all struggling, and so paying rent was an issue. They were living in, I think it was San Francisco at the time, or Colorado. San Francisco, I think. Can't remember. But bottom line is rent was expensive enough that it was a problem. And I'm pretty sure it was San Francisco. And then there was a conference coming into town, and what they found was that people needed a place to stay. And so they thought, hey, what if we just offered up like, you know, like an airbed, like a spot with an airbed? Maybe somebody like couldn't get a hotel or whatever. And they did that. And it was just a small experiment. Wow, somebody came in, really nice people. They made them breakfast. You know, thus came Airbnb, airbed and breakfast. That's why it's Airbnb, because it started with an airbed. And so they started playing with this idea that this could really work. Maybe there is a need for this. Maybe people are willing to do this, to lend the whole thing. But they weren't obviously prepared to go up against a Hilton or a Marriott. And turns out that they didn't have to, because they were going after people who normally would want to stay with a friend or a family member. But sometimes they're going to a city that they don't have a friend or a family member in. But they would love to have a couch, because they really can't afford to stay at a hotel. The hotels in San Francisco, super expensive. Could get up as high as $800,000 a night for just an average room. And that was the case just a few weeks ago when I was there. I got my reservation early, but I heard that people who got it later had to spend about $800 for like a regular room, nothing special. That's a lot of money. And if you're not like making a lot of money, or you're a student or whatever, you're not gonna swing that. So you would love it if there was a couch to stay, but you don't have a friend there, you don't have family there. But if there was a place where you can find available couches, spare bedrooms, whatever it might be, for much less than a hotel price, you might say, you know what, that I could do. I'll pay $50 to sleep on an airbed or sleep on a couch, or I'll pay 25 bucks or whatever. Some are really cheap depending on the market, by the way, but back then they were even cheaper than they are today. So they started putting that idea together. Now, at this level, are Marriott and Hilton worried about Airbnb?
No,
Why not?
they're small.
And what else?
They're not really,
They're small,
yeah.
but there's yet another reason.
They have more amenities.
They have more features, more benefits, more amenities. They haven't really proven anything.
It's not Marriott and Hilton are known for comfort, like room service.
Marriott and Hilton are known for a lot more. Comfort, nice beds, all of that. Say that louder.
They're not targeting the same kind of market yet.
They're not targeting that market. All of these answers, absolutely true. But the one I want to focus on is yours. They were not targeting that market. They did not want college students coming in to stay who are going to be looking for discounts. They would rather have professionals or business travelers come to their hotel, pay full price, and never ask for a discount because they're expensing it or whatever. Or they just have the money into them, $800, that's fine. That's what they would love to have. And these people are probably going to be gone the whole day, working, just coming in to sleep. College students might come, hang out, throw a party, then they're like, oh my God, this just got crazy. Why did we do this? They were not targeting that market. So they weren't worried. When they saw the market of, picture it as like a bar. When they saw the whole market of hotel stayers and all that stuff, they were like, look, these people are at the bottom of that market. And in some cases, they're not even in the market because they're not even traveling that much because they don't have friends or too many friends or family in different cities. So they're not even traveling a lot. So in their world, in their minds, whatever, somebody's playing down there at 25 bucks a night or whatever, knock yourselves out. We're playing in the 400 a night game. That's where we want to play. So they were not worried. What Airbnb did, though, was they did a good job of satisfying all of those people at the bottom. They even satisfied a group of people that were not even in the bottom. They were not the travelers. They were not traveling. But when they came to learn that there was an Airbnb option, they're like, oh, wow, I always hear about my friend who has so much family all over the country and gets to stay everywhere. I don't have that. But turns out Airbnb, for like a much lower price than a hotel, can get me into Miami, San Francisco, whatever, you name it, Chicago, New York, for significantly less. Yeah, it might be right outside the city, but whatever. I'll find a way to get in. Bus, subway, I'll find the way to get in. So all of a sudden, this part of the market that didn't exist, all of a sudden existed. The bottom part of the market that did exist, that was not of interest to Marriott or Hilton, went the way of Airbnb. And so there they came in, entering the market through the bottom and really through the invisible bottom that no one saw. That invisible bottom is one of the keys to the disruptive strategy. If you can find the market that does not identify themselves as a market, that does not exist, but you see them, but no one else sees them, you will not have much competition at the beginning. You will be able to grow for a while with very little like obstacles and challenges. And then you start to work your way up. So Airbnb had time to build the app, to build the platform, to build up their supply, to build up their demand. And they just kept working. It took them, by the way, 1,000 days before they finally felt like, oh my gosh, this thing is working. People post apartments, people rent apartments. This is just happening. Like, we don't have to intervene. We don't have to market. We don't have to push or do anything. We don't have to go find customers. They're just doing it on their own. 1,000 days. By the way, they almost quit before those 1,000 days. They talk about like dealing with some like things like depression and all that. They were really struggling. They didn't think. I mean, imagine like 1,000 or 900 days going by and you're like, this thing is not working. Like, you know what, guys, I think this is not going to be a thing. Maybe we need to all move on and find other jobs or do something else. But they hung in there. A lot of cool things about that story because it takes time to build something special. 1,000 days, they felt like we don't have to be depressed anymore. We can actually just like kind of sort of live off this. And they started to really take off. Now, at that point when they're taking off, they are still not even on the Marriott Hilton radar. Marriott and Hilton have this giant part of the market. Airbnb's playing with this, creeping in just a little to the bottom. Marriott and Hilton are like, it's not like we really like the bottom as much as we like the middle and the top. They're still not bothering us. I'm still not paying attention to them. And they kept working their way up. Last year, or maybe a little before last year, I think it was early last year, Airbnb launched the, what was it called? No, before that they launched experiences, but more recently they launched a really high-end service. Meaning somebody has a very special home or a very special apartment and it's specifically used for renting, like for Airbnb rentals. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically like Airbnb luxury, Airbnb something. All of a sudden, Marriott and Hilton are like, whoa, what just happened? This service has like more amenities. It has more of the features. It's got the room service, the comfy beds. Whoa, what's going on here? And it turns out that all these young people who had no money back in the day, oh gosh, they graduated college. They got nice jobs. They now have money and they are big fans of Airbnb. And now they're asking their companies, can we stay at Airbnbs and expense those instead of hotels? And some companies are saying yes. Now Hilton and Marriott are scared. Now they're worried because this little tiny startup came in from an invisible bottom that no one saw, went into the bottom of the market, they still didn't care, worked their way closer to the middle of the market, they were like, okay, shoot, they're kind of there, but I'm not too worried about them. We're not worried about air beds and spare bedrooms. And then all of a sudden launched a luxury service. Now it's like, whoa, now you're going toe-to-toe with me. This is a problem. For Marriott and Hilton, not for Airbnb. They're doing incredibly well. So that's the disruptive strategy. You enter from ideally a false bottom or even the real bottom, but just the very bottom, and you slowly work your way up so that no one messes with you at the bottom and it gives you time to grow and save up money or get more investors. Then you start to get higher and higher, and all of a sudden, by the time you get up there, you've got customers, you've got investors, you've got dollars. You can start marketing and you can start fighting. You can get into the ring with the heavyweights. You're prepared. But imagine as a tiny startup saying, I'm going straight to the top. I'm going to take down Marriott and Hilton. You know what they would have done if that happened? They would have just bought you. They would have come up to you and said, you know, this is a nice little cute thing you have. You got a few little customers here. One day they might get old enough to be our customers. Look, how about this? Look, I'm going to give you $100 million. And, you know, you go sail off into the sunset, start another company, and I'll just take this off your hands. You know, it's getting big. You don't want to worry about this thing. We've got a lot of executives here who know how to do that. Shit, $100 million? No way. Yeah, totally, $100 million. You know what? Let's make it 150 because you're a nice guy. I like you. You're like, done. Let's do it. Sign it. You're a $150 million heir. You know, you're plenty wealthy now. And guess what? They just swallowed you up. What are they going to do? close that company up, no more competition. That's what big companies do. Google does that, Facebook does that. They find startups, they swallow them up, and then they take those people, put them in different parts of Facebook or Google or whatever company, and that's it. Competition gone. That's what happens when you go right at the big guy. They have the money to do that. They can tempt you out of that. They can just give you the money to hand over the company. So Airbnb didn't do it that way. They started at the bottom. Nobody even noticed them. That's a disruptive strategy. So I wanted you to know that because some of you might have a disruptive opportunity. You might look at your market in such a way that you might be able to find the disruptive opportunity. So I wanted to help you. By the way, if you read the book Competing Against Luck, and The Innovator's Dilemma, you'll learn more about. In The Innovator's Dilemma, they talk a lot about the disruptive strategy as well, the theory of disruption. But in Competing Against Luck, he does a good review of the theory of disruption. So if you want to learn it, you can also read it in Competing Against Luck. And like I said, he wrote that way better. It's easier to read. It's just more fun to read that. All right, so let's start working here. So here's what I want you to do. So in your groups or individually, what I want you to do is first you've already stated your idea because I saw them on this document. So I want to jump to this one right here. But this idea of stating in 140 characters or less is a way to start taking your ideas from like all this way that like so many words you might use to explain them and learn how to explain it in less words. That's really important. So that's something that I don't want you to dismiss. But right now, I want you to start thinking about the job that your solution helps somebody to get done. What is the job that you're helping someone get done? First, identify the someone. Who is the someone? I think that I'm helping the department of whatever in the city, in New York. Or I think I'm helping a CUNY student. Cool. Then the CUNY student is the customer. What is the job that they're trying to get done? What are the problems that they encounter? What are the objectives they're trying to achieve? What is the result that they want? Answer those questions. Start thinking about that. So let's take 10 minutes to think about this and call me over, like let me help you with this, like refine this, or just come up and we'll talk about it. But I want you to focus on those two questions. Who are you going after? So first start with a person actually, and then think about the job. What is the job that they're trying to get done? If it's a CUNY student, what's the job that the CUNY student wants to get done as it relates to what you're trying to help them with? All right, I'm going to set a timer. Where's my phone? Oh, I left it here. This one's mine, right? Yep.
And our goal, by doing that, targeting these people and aligning it to money, so investment, do good investments, it eventually targets the city. So it's just a result of doing that.
I mean, the goal is to help, but you do that one.
Yeah. Institutional investors or individual investors. Do you agree? Agree?
I mean, investors in that.
Yeah. Or we can say stakeholders.
Thank you.
Can you say it again? How much the percentage of the investors want to implement the
It was like
system?
56. 46 and 56%.
They wanted to
It's
see
getting
They wanted to turn it off. We don't know. Align in their values.
Is it like going?
Yeah, recent years have been. It's actually 34%.
they're trying to do. Let's start with the job description. What does it have to wake up and go, I want it.
You know what? So we can focus on that. Why I wanted to make it individual as well is because individual investors, like say that you're by yourself and you're invested in a hole on a screen, you don't have access to this.
I want to keep doing this and talking to all of you about this and help you with your problems, but we're out of time. However, what I'm going to do is I'll work with the team to figure out, to offer up virtual sessions where we can discuss these problems. You can come and say, here, Roger, here's my job to be done. Here's the result. Here's the objectives. Here are the problems. Give me some feedback. Let's work on this out. Let's work this out. I want to be able to help you, but I also know you need a little time to kind of work this out and think about this a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this deck. There's more questions, but I only focused on the problem part for this one, but there's other questions that I think will help you just think about this. And then I'll work with Stan, whoever, to figure out virtual sessions, and I'll offer them up. I'll probably offer up either one group time where anybody in this room who came to this workshop can attend, and we'll just keep it to this group who attended, so hopefully you've written your name down somewhere. And then, or I'll offer up time slots, and I'll work to figure that out, what makes more sense. And then maybe we'll do 15-minute time slots, and then we can, each team or individual, whatever, you can have a 15-minute time slot, and we'll go over this. And come with your questions. Sound okay? That work? All right, cool. Great job, guys.
So let's thank Roger.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
And I just want to remind everybody of 2 dates. Next Friday is the 3rd workshop on communication strategies. And you want to make sure you do that, because when you come to the boot camp, you're going to have to do a 5-minute pitch with your team before a panel of reviewers. And 2, that everyone needs to remember they have to get their team information sheet or milestone 1 form mailed in before next Friday, or no later than next Friday, because that's how you get invited to the boot camp on the Intrepid the following week. So have a great weekend. Keep up the good work. Take care.
And guys, connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. Look me up, Roger Osorio. You can see my name somewhere up here. Look me up on LinkedIn. You can send me a message, and we can stay in touch. Instagram, Twitter, all that. So I should be pretty easy to find.